Moving on, we are looking at global brands, local flavors, adapting to win in the Kuwaiti F&B landscape. And our panelists for this session are Frank Bordoni, Commercial Director, Hospitality Division, Al Shaya Group. We have Joseph Chartouni, CEO, Al Shaya Franchising Company. And your moderator for this session will be Ashish Tusyan, co-founder and CEO of RestroWorks. Gentlemen, if you'd like to take the stage.
FFCC for organizing this and giving us an opportunity. This is an absolute pleasure to host Joseph and Frank on this panel, and two companies and brands that are representing what global brands on the local turf can do. I'm Ashish Tulsan. I'm one of the founders at RestroWorks. We are a restaurant technology company. And Joseph and Frank, we would like to start with a quick introduction.
I just want to say thank you. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello, okay. I just want to say thank you, Ashish, for inviting me to sit on this panel. It's a great to be here with the restaurant community of Kuwait. You're a great man, and I also know that you're a partner, so you're also a great partner. I'm also privileged to be sitting, sharing this panel with a highly experienced person from so I've been leading the business for the past 3 years. It's been an amazing experience, a learning experience for me. And we have a great stuff, hopefully, to share today about those past 3 years' experience in Kuwait and beyond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Frank.
Pleasure. Thank you, Joseph. It's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Frank Bordoni. I'm the Commercial Director for Al Shaya for the Hospitality Division. I've been in Kuwait 7.5, nearly 8 years now. Too many years in the industry to count. But it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invite.
All right, Joseph and Frank. Joseph, you represent Caribou and Five Guys in the region. And, Al Shaya has a portfolio, that doesn't...
A few brands.
That doesn't end. All the iconic brands as well. I'll jump right in. There is a lot of chatter about, in the world of food, when consumption is growing, consumers are more pronounced in their choices. They really are choosing what they want, how they want to experience. Brands from yesteryears have been banking on a lot of nostalgia. A lot of consumers who have traveled outside, who have been, around, for them, a lot of iconic brands are just nostalgia and they relate to them. But then there is this, current consumer today who's also picky, who want new, who does not have a nostalgia problem. Today in Kuwait, how do you look at global brands versus local brand, for business? And I'm not talking about global brand versus, local as a competition. But how do you, work as a global brand? How do you position yourself? How do you work here while there are local brands that are thriving and they're bringing new concepts?
So if you want me to start, yes. So I say Kuwaiti, let's look at the Kuwaiti as a customer. Somebody who is highly exposed, travels the world, experience a lot of the great global brands, and they aspire to get that same experience while they travel back home. On these bases, global brands were focusing on Kuwait as a market opportunity, and some of whom entered long ago, some of them who continue to enter today the market. And when those global brands come in, they come in with their what we call brand essence, right? The brand essence is something should be ownable and consistent globally and locally. And the opportunity, though, for those global brands, as they set foot and establish themselves in the local market, the next opportunity is to connect with the local market, leveraging that same experience the customer had when they were back in the foreign grounds and then when they're back in the US. So respecting the local, understanding the, while preserving their essence, understanding the Kuwaiti as a customer, doing enough research to understand what their aspirations is and what is relevant to them, and also to leverage the opportunity of looking and evaluating local restaurant scenes. There's so much learning they can get for free by simply coming in and experiencing the local restaurants, what they've been doing, what's been trending, what's the touch points, and how they usually behave, hosting the local customers. So much learning one can get there. So local businesses becomes an inspiration for international and not necessarily a competition in that regards.
That is a great point. Frank, I would love to see your response.
I would tend to agree with a lot of what Joseph said. I call it glocalization, right? So as Joseph said, if you have a really strong brand that you connect with and you identify with, maybe you studied in the US, that was your favorite, spot for lunch or whatever. When that brand comes to the region, you want to connect with it and you want it to have its identity. So the brand ethos identity is critical to not lose. That's something that you connect with. But then I talk about something called regional relevance. How does that brand maintain its ethos and identity at a brand level, whether that's through packaging, through the offer, through some of the experience, and how does it connect in the market that it's in to the local and regional consumer, and that means not just flavors but experience as well.
How do you? I mean, this is a question that I think about often, especially applies to Kuwait market where Kuwaitis are very, very well traveled, extremely well exposed. When you bring a global iconic brand to a region, what is it that you gun for? Is it the same experience that they had in the US and the UK or Europe or somewhere else, and you bring exactly the same experience back home? Or do you gun for making sure that it is localized, which actually just changes the flavor of the brand? So now it's just the same logo, but it may not be the same product, and which at times beats me that, how does it make sense for a well-traveled audience? I will qualify my question with, countries where large part of the audience is not well-traveled, I see brands localizing, win, because that is the first introduction to the brand. Locals want to see something that they did for them. How do you look at it here, Frank?
Well, for me, that's a bit of a red flag. So if you've got a brand that has a very small niche identity, let's say it's a burrito, for example, right? You're not going to try and turn that into a shawarma just to bring it in. You'll lose completely the identity. So for certain brands, they should stand by their ethos and identity, and they shouldn't really try to be something that they're not, because it moves away from that. There are other brands and cafe-type concepts where you have a broad range of products. And, if that product means that pastry might have a different filling or a different flavor profile or use different spices, that's a value that sticks to the ethos of the brand but connects relevantly in the region or in the market. So I think you can't broad stroke these things. You have to be very surgical, and you have to analyze, and as Joseph said, you have to immerse yourself in the country. If you come into Kuwait, look at the incredible food offers, the standards, the quality, the uniqueness that's in here, and you have to absorb that and understand it as best you can before you try and push something that you're uneducated about.
How do you bring that to Caribou?
So my view on this is, as global brands approach and build trust with their local franchisees, right? Step one, that's me. I want to stand for what I stand for. But in time, as you build the trust with the franchisee, franchisors start to be great listeners. And they tell you, nobody's going to know this market like the franchisee does, right? So there's a lot of merit to helping me execute the brand in the best way possible. And what we normally do is we decide, okay, well, these are the standard parameters of the brand, but let's agree on a percentage where we actually can work and localize. We have the freedom of, And when I talk about localization, I'm not talking about the food and the menu. We're a chain. You can localize supply chain, the same way you would localize marketing and communication, the same way you think to localize the development or real estate or the customer experience, real estate location, real estate structure, and decor package. And definitely there is the food, right? So the core is preserved. We owe it to them to preserve the core. We owe it to them to build and promote the core. But they owe it to us also to demonstrate local understanding by leveraging the 20-30% room that we can epitomize and dramatize in the way of food at minimum, during seasonal events, when these are emotional events where we can show how the really shows that you understand the local markets and become more and more relevant.
No, I think great points. Localization is not only food, but various different aspects of the brand. Joseph, I'll go, I go specific, and let me know if you don't want to answer that. But coffee is big business, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are either already doing coffee or coffee is one of the viable options that they come out. How do you look at coffee as a business in Kuwait today? What's your motivation? There's a lot of coffee already. How much more coffee can happen, both from your perspective in terms of your expansion, and two, from new brands to enter the market?
So to make this discussion exciting and a bit dramatic, I say the coffee business obviously is here to stay. Kuwaiti coffee are coffeeholic. They appreciate the taste. They've, over the years, like many other markets, right, moved from a tea market to become a coffee market. So coffee is here to stay. I think for us as local coffee businesses and our clients, if there is anything we should worry about, we should worry about the coffee disruptors. Right? If somebody who's coming in, like people who are finding here in the delivery space, there's some disruptors coming in, this could happen to coffee. So to the topic that we're discussing today, and when we talk about localization, this drives loyalty. This drives, if I try someone else who is a disruptor coming into the market, I'm gonna feel bad, right? And one of the channels I missed mentioning about localization is the frontline team, the people, how you call people by name, respect, give them the attention they deserve. That's all great value add day in and day out with our soldiers and what we call the front soldiers. So I think, man, it's a topic we discussed this afternoon on loyalty, the importance of loyalty, payback of loyalty. I would say within the realm of any disruptor coming into the coffee business, I think that should be the topic that would worry people and keep us up at night, not necessarily the people moving from coffee to matcha.
No, I'll tell you why I asked you this, because coffee is one thing which is almost like a staple, or as you said, people are coffeeholic. It's very difficult to differentiate from like a 30,000 feet when it comes to business of coffee, when you try to differentiate between the global and the local, unless you are talking about specific flavor of coffee, which technically is not the case. So I take that as a different flavor of localization on how you're driving the customer loyalty, and it's not really just about coffee.
100%.
Frank, same question, but a little personalized. Al-Shaya, when you guys are the flag bearers of, bringing global brands to the country and to the region and flourishing with them, how are you looking at not only competing with the local brands today, but also, introducing, more brands to the market? Is the first choice global, or is it homegrown?
I think it's very individual on the brands. I mean, going back to coffee, if you look at how long coffee has been a culture around the world, and it's amazing we're still reinventing and finding new ways of delivering it, of experiencing it, of packaging it. So I don't think that's going to stop. And, you've now got the Gen Zs coming in with a totally different attitude to the way that they want food. I want it, where I want it, how I want it, when I want it. And that disrupts the market in itself because it's a huge behavioral change perhaps to how we used to were introduced to cafes and eating and how our behaviors were. So and I see that not just in coffee, by the way, but across the whole hospitality dining scene. So I think there is an element. Formats are changing, so from traditional store formats, curbside, delivery, drive-throughs, these kind of channels have really opened up and diversified and forced brands and operators to rethink those models that they use because they need to now accommodate this. Speed of service, automation, AI, all of those things are coming in. So yeah, I think that it's going to continue to evolve and continue to change. I like that. I didn't get into this industry because I was afraid of a challenge. I think anybody who works in F&B thrives on that pace and that challenge, So it keeps us on our toes, and I think we've just got to be aware of the customer and the guest at the end of the day at all levels. We need to understand them, what they need, and for anybody who's an operator or thinking to be an operator, do regular audits, touch points with your customers, with your guests. Understand their needs because that's what they're going to be asking for. It's okay saying this is my brand, this is my offer, I'm going to push it to you, but guests tell you what they want, right? So just connect with that and understand at that level.
Frank, my next question is really about the mechanics of it. So the biggest case in favor of bringing a global brand to the region always was that they come with the know-how, they come with the product, they come with the raw material, training, SOPs, and whatnot, right? So you get the whole package, that you can probably, localize at some point when you really become great at it. But is that relevant today when, this was relevant 20, 30 years back, but is this relevant today for a new aspiring or an existing restaurateur when they think about a new concept, whether to go local or global is a function of know-how. How do you look at it, today? What's the knowledge that is already available versus it wasn't?
I think starting any business and a brand on your own is incredibly tough. Incredibly tough. So it's not impossible, and there are great local brands that have delivered it, but there's equally, for those one or two that then make it, there's a huge number that have failed. So I think there is an attraction to having something that's proven, that has a bit of a game plan that you can follow and do. So I think there is room for both, but there is some comfort, I think, in knowing you can see how a brand's performed, their numbers, you have a playbook to follow. I do agree with Joseph that host brands, when they first come to the region, are very nervous. It's a relationship as well, upwards as well as with the guest. You've got to nurture that relationship. As they see that you deliver their brand excellence, they become more comfortable with you adding that relevance and saying, hey, have you thought about adding this? Because, this would really resonate well in this market. So, you have to be prepared either way for a journey. It's not that you get delivered something and bam, you open it and it's done. There's a journey either way of building trust, relationship, and working that brand so that you can get it in a position that can deliver on its excellence as a brand level, but also add that regional relevance that we talked about. Or if you want to go alone and you want to create something, fantastic, but it's tough, really tough.
I agree with everything that Frank said, of course. I agree with everything that Frank said, of course, but I want to answer the question in a different angle and say that Kuwait has been pioneering the F&B business for some time now by virtue of the government investing in small, medium-sized enterprise at one point, and people latched on the opportunity of developing their own businesses. So I say today that the local F&B market have learned the name of the game, and they're becoming fierce competitors. In fact, leveraging their own local knowledge, they're giving themselves a competitive edge against international brands, and in some ways, of course. So for me, global, local, or glocal, like you mentioned it, is no longer an option. It's a must do or die. You cannot just come and say, this is me, and you're going to buy me the way I am, without saying, you know what, I'm going to pay tribute to you, to the nation where I'm operating, and therefore to get influenced and inspired by what you do, and say thank you to you during the festive seasons. I mean, in Caribou Coffee, we have the Arabic call the press, as people wait for it year on year. That's a thank you gesture. It's not just the business. It's being there during these emotional moments and celebrate with them, with an enabler. I call it the coffee. So to that end, I say, one need to watch out and respect and learn from and even buy into and even go as far as creating your own local brands. Because the industry is ready and more than ready than ever, to dish out all these great brands, and not just for Kuwait, but for the Middle East, and we're seeing it. Kuwaiti brands being very successful in Saudi, UAE, and obviously the rest of the Middle East markets.
You're right. I mean, Kuwait has been the cradle of all the food industry in the region. I mean, the amount of Kuwaiti companies that have really flourished food across the region is insane.
Yeah.
My last question to both of you, what about the innovation? So today, both of your brand portfolios, when you look at your LTOs, your limited time offers, or testing new products or bringing new products to the brand, to the fore, how much of that is your local R&D led product versus the global product, the global R&D bringing it to the market?
Would you like me? Okay, I'll start answering that. And I believe for any company, any food company, we're as good as the people that we work with and join us. At Al Sayer Franchising, and now we're calling it ASF, just for short. We've introduced many Kuwaitis into the employee mix at the head office, and we aspire to even having them in the front line. And we do have, also some of them in the front line, but not as many as we would like to. And I have seen an amazing partnership between R&D and marketing. For me, these are intertwined, connected elements that will bring about unleashing those insights, about current consumer feedback on the core, but also on the trends, and what is it we can add, be it LTOs or whatnot. So for me, it becomes a way of life for you to really think of having a successfully sustainable business is to bring, the team into the success of the restaurants, the people who really make this happen. And that goes the same way, obviously, how the same team collaborates with supply chain, the training, the operations, and all of them are here today with me. So I'm sure if you ask them to come up on stage and talk, they'll have a lot more stuff to say. So for me, it's really, if you want to localize, you also need the local people with you, because no matter how much you know, you're not going to know more than them, right? This is home for them. And I will also say you got to, through marketing, invest in research. And we've got some research partner in the audience today here. So collaboratively partnering with the employees, partnering with our research partners, we unleash insights, and those becomes overnight your competitive edge when they're executed well against in the company. So
making sure that the R&D is local and it is done with the people who are from here and not really just bringing from outside as a primary way.
Totally agree, 100%, yes.
I'd like to just touch back on something that Joseph said about, the Kuwait market, because it's incredibly evolved, incredibly creative and talented. And, you see that in now Kuwaiti-born brands now opening in London and expanding and going the reverse, the international expansion going the other way, which is amazing. And I would say the same also with LTOs. We're seeing that, There was a recent Shake Shack one where they did a Dubai chocolate. That actually got taken up by the host brand. It was created here, got taken up globally and rolled out. So I see it, yes, it works still this way, but I'm seeing more these green shoots of of that innovation and creativity happening here and actually going back and bucking the trend, which is really interesting.
That is awesome. For me, conclusively, at least my takeaways from this panel, one, localization is the game and not global or local, but it's a combination. Great point, Frank. Kuwaiti innovation in food is now going, back to internationalization or globalization, and even taken by the house, the brand at the HQ. And Joseph, thank you for making the point that localization is not only about food and ingredients, but it's also about your marketing, how you treat the customer, loyalty, how you present your food. There are so many facets to the restaurants where localization can take place in various different places, and not only food and its states.
So if I want to say one last headline before I leave the podium, I say if politics divides, food unites. So let's continue investing in food.
Food has no region, religion, or politics. On that note, thank you, gentlemen. I hope people here are going to take a lot of wise words and insights. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you